So we're in our month on boundaries, and so far we've been working on our yeses with the idea that if you often don't have to get down to the point of saying no, of creative conflict, compassionate conflict. That's a whole art. But 90% of the time, I'm going to propose to you, if you could just say yes really well, you wouldn't even have to master this art of no that we're on. This week is going to be learning the art of no, or compassionate boundaries. The thing I want to mention first, you remember we've got the two C's of our orientation: compassionate, connected orientation. And in this work, we're talking about, as much as we can, maintaining that compassionate, connected orientation. Even in conflict this month, we're starting to dip our toes into how could we keep that compassionate and connected orientation. So I want to add a C to that this month, and that C is consent. Our orientation is going to be compassionate, connected, and consensual. Compassionate, connected, and consensual. And this is the art of our boundaries, is all going to involve this idea of consent. Our opposite orientation, remember, it was also C's, and we could say that it was the closed and constricted orientation. And the C that we would add there, instead of consent, you would have coercion. Instead of consent, you would have coercion. So how does this play out? Well, obviously, let's say your friend invites you out for a drink and you say, oh no, I realize I have this thing with drinking. I'm going to take a break for a little while. And if they say, oh, wow, I really respect that. Where would you like to go somewhere? I'd love to spend time with you. Is there a place that you would feel comfortable going? In that relationship, you're in consent culture. You're in consent culture. If, on the other hand, you, in that same scenario, you said that and your friend goes, oh, come on, just have a drink with me, like one won't hurt you, or in any other way tries to convince you, coerce you out of what you just said. And it probably, in that situation, probably took a darn lot of work to get yourself to that inner strength. If they immediately try to wear down your inner strength and your commitment, choosing in our Rev C protocol, you figured out what your choice was. And if you're in a type of relationship where they try to erode your choicefulness and change your mind, you're no longer in a culture of consent. So this is really crucial to know, because it comes back to when we were talking about nonviolent. Well, what is violence? And in this paradigm, violence is going to be attempting to manipulate you to change your behavior. Rather than asking for you to choose on my behalf, rather than finding ways in which we can both get our needs met, violence it's not only using physical force, it can be using emotional abuse, but it can also be trying to disempower you out of your capacity to choose. So consent is totally different. This is where if you have a no, your no is respected. And if another person has a no, their no is respected. This goes along, I'll put the slogan in bold in your notes, but the slogan I really love from a meme I saw on the internet, the great wisdom oracle of the internet, which says, boundaries is the distance at which I can love both me and you. Boundaries. So this is going to be our working definition of boundaries. Boundaries is the distance. So in this case, we could say what type of choosing, the choices I can make that allow me to love both me and you. So in that example, right, I can love myself by not drinking. And if I go to a bar, I'm going to want to drink. And so I'm going to love myself by not going there. And I can love you. Well, do you want to go out to a tea place? Or, I can not go to the bar with you, but not close my heart and judge you for that. We're all allowed to make our choices, and being able to make those choices together is having these proper boundaries. So our first principle here, so that's your slogan, that's orientation. The compassionate connected orientation gets another C on it, which is consent. And there's just a slogan for us, a working definition of boundaries: the distance at which I can love both you and me. So some folks in your life, that distance is going to be very close. Others might have to be out there a little ways. So the first practice that I want to offer you today is called, I learned it from Nancy Reagan, and it's called just say no. Just say no. So this may be difficult for some of you, especially if you've been indoctrinated in a cultural trance that says you're not allowed to just say no. But this is the idea that if your choice doesn't infringe on the rights of others, especially in terms of a boundary, like if somebody says like, hey, I want to put some olive oil on my finger and rub it around inside your ear, you don't have to give them an explanation at all. You don't have to say, oh, thanks. Wow, I really love you, but I'm not sure about the effects of olive oil. You can just say, no, not going to do that. Sorry, bud. And you don't even have to say sorry, bud. You could, oh, it looked like you really wanted to tickle somebody's ear, but no. So the first principle is just say no. And this is a sign where you can tell whether you are in the compassionate connected orientation, which involves consent or empowered choosing, or whether you are in a closed and constricted orientation in that relationship. Because if you just say no, what happens? Okay, so it ain't nobody's business but your own, how you choose to be happy and grow, as long as it doesn't affect the health, safety, livingness, and thriving of others. How cool is that? So, hey, do you want to do this? Nope. That's the whole business. Now, hopefully, some of you will be like, yeah, I get that. Okay, moving on. And others of you will be like, holy shit, like, I'm not sure that's allowed. This should really stick in you for a lot of us, and go against some of the conditioning that we've had. So some of these places, just checking my time here as I look away from the camera, some of the places where you'll see this, where it's totally different than that is like in my beloved New Age community. So if you know any New Age folks, go on the internet and just kind of post a choice you're making about your life that's nobody else's business. And you'll find on a social media site bunches and bunches of well-meaning hippies coming on and telling you, no, you can't do this because this and this and this. Oh, you can't make that choice. And it's actually none of their business. Okay, another one that you'll see is coaching culture. And a lot of time in the culture of coaching, it's a complicated issue about like if you're a person's hired coach. Sometimes you'll even see this in unsolicited advice, that you have a strong boundary, a choice that you're sure of, and people take it as their job to convince you that your boundary is incorrect, to push you past your boundaries. And we'll use all kinds of nice sounding language like, oh, you've got to get outside of your comfort zone, all this kind of stuff. And there's certainly a place for that. But having graduated from meditation schools, energetic schools, martial arts schools, where the culture was to encourage you to ignore your own wisdom, to have a boundary come up, and then to say, I'm the coach, I know better than you, do it my way anyway. This is not a culture of consent. And I'll propose to you that it's not a compassionate, connected culture. Oh boy. Oh, what else? Yeah, some meditation or yoga communities do this as well. So what I propose to you today to try on this worldview, and you can rebut me, we can debate this, of course. The ideas I'm giving you are not complete, but I believe they are very important. So the idea I want you to try on today is that no one gets to tell you when you need to push your limits, what you need to try, where your comfort zone is or isn't, except you. Now, you could see this sexually if you really wanted to have a strong, just to like, bring this in. My personal belief is that if you are in a sexual relationship with someone and they say, hey, will you do this? And you say no, that's the end of the story. And the other person it doesn't mean they don't get to mourn. You can study in the realm of like conscious kink. This is one of the things I learned from conscious kink community studies, is that you just take no at face value. Like that's it. Nothing else is required so long as no one else is getting hurt. Okay. So that's your first one. Just say no. I really want you to just try that on. Like anytime you don't want to do something, just start saying no. just start saying no. And we're going to soften that tomorrow. But for today, I just really want you to see, for some of us, we push our own boundaries. We ignore the voice of our own inner wisdom. We ignore advocating for our own thriving a lot. A lot of us do it a lot of the time. Just say no. Just that's it. You don't need anything, don't need to do anything more. So then if you ask someone else to do something, so you got a two-parter today, just start saying no. And then what goes with that is when you are asking others to do something and they say no, it's not your job to coerce them into saying yes. It's not your job to coerce them into saying yes. So I want you to practice, please, hearing no. And a mantra we'll try in our live meeting that I learned from my coach was make a habit of hearing no and then learning to say, thank you for taking care of yourself. And that's your mantra. Would you like some ice cream? No. Oh, come on, live a little. Red light, red light. Thank you for taking care of yourself. You want a coffee? Trying to cut down on caffeine? Wow, thank you for taking care of yourself. I'm going to run to the store and get you some decaf. Interested in that? Or I got this adaptogen coffee. I tried on the internet. Whatever it is, start with thank you for taking care of yourself when you hear a no. Okay, one application that you'll see this in is when you are coaching. If you're coaching couples, you will sometimes see that one or the other couple does this to their partner. You'll see it's really kind of awkward once you start doing this work on no, because you'll see partners who are real growth oriented and I'm concerned my partner's not growing in this way or the other thing. I'm sorry to break it to y'all, but that's not your business. Their spiritual growth is between them and God or Gaia or whatever the Nietzsche, if you don't believe in any of that, whatever. And you can mourn with them, you can make requests of them, etc. But if you make it your job to point out when they should be pushing their boundaries, when they're stuck in their comfort zone, you're actually going to create a constricted and closed and coercive orientation in the relationship. So this is one we'll get into how to coach that, but it's one to watch out for, where partners get into being the watchdog for when the partner's no shouldn't be a no. And there's that word. Once it's in a should, you're bossing the other person around. So you might want to watch out for that. Okay, what are your practices? Number one, of course, like I said before, practice saying no. And you can look into where are my boundaries, like do a journaling page. Like, what are my hard limits right now? Do I have some just boundaries I'm sure of? If it doesn't come out in that way, start keeping track as you go through your day. Where are your hard boundaries? And just keep track of those no's. A journal inquiry that you might try is, here are a couple of stems, and I'll be in the notes down below. Are you comfortable saying no? You can just take a little inquiry journey in your journal on that. Expanding on that, if someone asks you to do something that you know will exhaust your time, health, or mental health, can you say no to them? Can you just say, sorry, that's not going to work for me? Or do you have to push yourself? Do you have to make time for them, etc.? Okay, all karma yoga and good Christian values aside, can you say no? It's one thing to choose to say yes, but we want to know right now, are you capable of just saying no? That's your practice for today. What else? And then this one, requires a little trigger warning. Make sure you do some resourcing, but an inquiry, have your no's been respected in your life? Maybe start with, when have your no's been respected? Can you remember saying no and having that be respected? And of course, that may bring up, have your no's been disrespected? And it may be time to do a little mourning on that. So there you go. The art of no, getting right into it. This is some of the most powerful work. Let me know what comes up for you. Is this old news? Have you done this work? Are you ready to do it again? Is it brand new? Is it earth-shattering? Are you a no? Are you not going to do this journaling no matter what? Well, thank you for taking care of yourself, buddy. And we'll soften the blow a little bit tomorrow, but enjoy this work for today, and I'll see you then.